What's going on, Nerd Nation? My name, as always, is Mac Taylor, your friendly neighborhood Nerd King. Here to talk about Big Brother 3 as we trudge through every season of Big Brother, every season of Survivor, and maybe even after I'm all caught up with that, I may go on, I may do Survivor, the Australian Survivor. I may do BBUK. I'm not going to get ahead of myself yet and say I'm going to do that just like for sure, because it's going to take me forever to get through, probably by the time I'm done, like 40 seasons of Survivor and 24 seasons of Big Brother. There's a lot. I'm going to have to get through a lot. So bear with me as I'm going to try to get these out. Probably try to do like a season every couple weeks, because I have other projects going on. I'm trying to do short films and movie reviews, and right now I'm having trouble with my camera. So I had to get a new camera, which is not fun. So I kind of can't really film any video until then, so that kind of sucks. It's all audio, which is like this, but I'm going to do these audio anyway. But it kind of halts my production schedule a little bit, which is not fun. But you weren't here. We're not here to talk about my schedule. We're here to talk about Big Brother 3. You know, Big Brother 1, which I haven't covered on this. I may. Maybe that'll be a bonus to you guys later, but right now, I don't want to watch it. It's bad. Not in our format. It takes fucking forever to get through. Just not something I really want to do right now. So I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm going to talk. I started at Big Brother 2, which is a great season, but it doesn't have the power of veto. Big Brother 3 introduces the silver power of veto. Little different than the golden power of veto. You basically, if you're the nominee, first of all, everybody plays in the veto. It's not 6 people. It doesn't matter. Everybody plays, and if you're a nominee and you win, you can't use it on yourself. You can save the other person, but you can't save yourself, which really is kind of dumb. Like, basically, you shouldn't even have the nominees playing if they can't save themselves. But whatever, it's only for this season. After that, we get the golden power of veto, and it's all Gucci at that point. It's all makes sense at that point. So without further ado, let's get into Big Brother 3 and all the goody goodness that it is. So, kind of getting to know, as people come into the house, Josh, and I'm going to be talking a lot about Josh, and he's in the first phase here, as we go through the first 4 evictees. Josh wants to be the leader. He's confident. He's like, I'm going to dominate this game. I'm strategic-minded. I'm a leader. Let's do this. And right off the bat, is it really getting on people's nerves? People are like, "Oh my god, this guy is too much." Like he's a goofball, but also he's this all over the place. And Kiara, at this point, it's kind of just being nice to everybody and being pleasant, and boy, does that change later. And basically, they pair up, the house does. And they're in these, like, bird's nests with all these groceries, and it's basically, how stay up there the longest. And the duo that stays up there the longest, you're now paired up. And if you manage to make it to the final 2, we'll up the prize money. And everyone's like, ooh, shit. So, at this point, Amy's pissing people off because she's drinking a bunch of alcohol and ends up having to go down to pee. And it comes down to, I believe, Danielle and Marcellus and Jason and Lori. And basically Marcellus can't, he has to stretch his legs out, and so they lose. Jason and Lori are now linked as far as, as long as they're in the game, they're going to get money. Jason is like, I'm getting up early. Jason's like, I want to be up early so I don't miss any sort of conversations or anything going on in the game. I want to be aware of what's happening in the house, so I get up early just so I don't miss anything, which I think is a brilliant brilliant maneuver. I don't think in Big Brother 2 anybody had that mindset of like, I got to be up early. No, I don't think anybody was thinking that far ahead. Even Will, it took like 3 or 4 weeks to really get into the game in Big Brother 2. But here right off the bat, Jason's like, I came here to win. And to win, I think I need to know what's going on strategically and socially. And so I give big applause to Jason right off the bat, just right as the game starts, thinking about little things like that. They play the HOH, which is essentially the same as BB2. Like, who would you rather do this, that, the other? Basically, who do you want to be HOH? And Lisa ends up becoming the first head of household. Roddy and Lori have a conversation. Kinda just... Lori is looking real good at this point. Whereas Lisa doesn't really like the position she's in. She feels like, oh man, I gotta take this first shot, and I don't really know how to take the first shot. Meanwhile, Josh pulls... There's 6 people in the hot tub. Or I'm sorry, he's like, we gotta get... Josh is basically like, we gotta target Marcellus. So he's already talking to people like, we gotta get Marcellus out. We're gonna get him out of here. And then there's a lot of talk about Marcellus, because he's gay. There's a lot of talk about that. It's not as much of a point as it was in BB2 with Bunky. Also Bunky, if you're listening, love you. Uncle Bunky for the win. But there's a lot of talk about Marcellus being gay. And also Jerry is feeling like because Jerry is the older person in the cast. So he's like the dad at this point, Which I guess I should just go ahead and name the contestants. We have Danielle, Kiara, Lisa, Amy, Lori, Tanya. The male side, we have Marcellus, Josh, Jerry, Roddy, Eric, Jason, and Marcellus. So we have, 6 males, 6 females, making 12-person cast. So just to have the names out there. There we go. So there's a luxury comp to open up the hot tub. And, this is always a thing in the early Big Brother seasons. You got to get that hot tub. I don't even think they have a hot tub anymore in the Big Brother backyard. But at one point, it was kind of a point to have to win it. Whereas now, I don't even think they have the damn thing. I think it's just the pool. Basically, they had to get in this thing of, like, goo and switch bathing suits. Like, the men had to get into the women's, and the women's had to get into the men's. And Jerry ends up looking completely ridiculous. Everybody else is like, oh, they look cute in a bikini, and then it's Jerry, and they kind of talk about his dad bod. But, they end up doing it in the time. They win the hot tub, and everyone's like, woo, hot tub times, because that's, it's fun. Meanwhile, Jason, because, Jason is the Christian kind of guy. He's not really, he's trying to behave himself, so he's kind of hanging out with the moms, like Lori, Danielle, people like that. And right off the bat, Marcellus is a bit negative when it comes to the house. He is a bit... he's having a hard time fitting in, I guess. And you definitely need to integrate yourself into the house. Like, you really need to be social, especially in these early times of the game, because nominations those first few weeks are based off of first impressions and how people feel about each other. There is no personal vendettas at that point in the game. So it's really hard to say, like, oh, I'm going to target you for this reason. It's really just like, do we get along? Do I like you? Do I hang out with you in the house? Like, it's really easy for someone who doesn't know someone just to put them up like, I don't really know you that well, sorry. And Marcellus is really feeling the effects of this, the lack of interaction with certain house guests. And he especially doesn't get along with Josh. Josh and him are clashing, mostly because Josh is a big personality. I think Marcellus, in his own right, is a big personality, and they're both just button heads. And like I said, Josh really getting on people's nerves because he's just talking game all the time and being kind of a dick to certain people. And it's too much, man. It's too much too fast. Jason, on the other hand, really well liked. And he does say in the diary room, like, I'm a virgin, but I don't really want that to be what I'm known for. I want to be singled out for it. Like, I just, people may have like, oh, he doesn't understand us because he's a virgin, whatever. He's trying not to make it a thing, whereas Kiara is like obsessed with it. And eventually he has to tell her, like, yeah, I'm a virgin. And she's like, oh my god, that's amazing. And Tanya's just giving everyone haircuts. It's kind of like, oh god, girl, why you making a big deal out of this? But Kiara is, like, obsessed with Jason for that fact. Meanwhile, in the hot tub, Josh is with Lisa, Kiara, Eric, and Jerry, and Roddy. And he's like, hey, us 6 to the end. And everyone's like, yeah, it sounds good. Like, 6 personal lines. That's half the house. We can run everything. And Josh is like, we gotta target Marcellus. And they're like, why? And he's like, well, Marcellus is so negative. Let's get that negative energy out of the house. And they're like, well, okay, I guess that sounds okay. And then Josh goes and assures Lori, like, hey, you may go up on the block against Marcellus, but you're safe. Don't even worry about it. You're safe. Yeah, no, nothing to worry about here. And she's like, don't really like to hear them going on the block, but okay. And then Lisa hears that Josh and Jerry, even though they're in the 6, they're plotting against the 6, especially her in particular. So she's already like, I don't really know about working with Josh and Jerry. So nominations happen, and Lori and Marcellus are nominated. And Lisa feels good about it. She's like, you got Lori as the pawn, Marcellus is going to go home. And Lori's like, I think I'm good. I think I'm safe here. And then Danielle goes into Lisa's HOH room and is like, yeah, good job with the noms. You did a good job. And it's kind of like this sizing up thing of Danielle being like, it's me versus you. It's a weird feeling. Like, even Lisa feels it. Like, what was that about? Why did she come here and tell me this? And then Josh really trying to get Jason on board. And like, he's really pushing to get Jason. Jason's really kind of like, I don't really know about working with Josh because he seems a little sketchy. But when someone's talking to you about working with them, you're not going to blow them off. So Jason makes him like, yeah, we're good here. But really, Jason has no intention of continuing to work with Josh. Eric and Lisa are bonding. They're flirting. And Eric is also kind of like the lizard king. He loves those lizards. The two, Godzilla and Rodan. Which is weird that they named one Rodan, because Rodan's a pterodon. But I guess they didn't know that. They didn't do much research. They could have named him maybe Godzilla and Ghidorah or something like that. But, it's okay. It's cool that they're named Godzilla and Rodan. And Eric loves them. Eric and Lisa bonding, and early on, showmances that people didn't know, know how dangerous they were, so they were doing them a lot. And Marcellus is making the argument that, hey, you might want to vote out Lori, because I'm the weaker one. Like, I'm not going to win in the end. Take me farther. It's better for your game. People are going to target me. And he's not wrong. And it's rare. Like, we didn't see this a lot. We only saw Will do this, really. Marcellus isn't doing it as well, but he's basically saying, hey, I'm not going to win. Why would you want to take someone who's probably going to beat you to the end instead of me, someone who's probably not going to be well liked, and you'll win. Keep me around. He kept saying, don't do it based on personal opinion, do what's best for your game. And I liked that a lot. I think Marcellus really was thinking pretty strategically early on. And it's rare. Again, this is season 3. A lot of the things being done in seasons 2 and 3, it's the first time we've seen these kind of strategies emerge. Things that we take for granted, things that we think all Big Brother players should know. Someone had to do it first. And some people even downplay, like, oh, it was going to be done anyway. These just happen to be the first people who did it. But that does say something. They had to think about it. They had to make this move happen. Yeah, eventually someone was going to come up with it, sure. But they came up with it. So they deserve it, the credit, because they did it. Like, yeah, you can argue, oh, anyone else could have come up with it. But no one else did come up with it. They did first. So I had to put that argument to bed there. So there's that thing. Marcellus trying to underselling himself, Danielle and Jason, however, early on are like, we can benefit working together, but we're not going to make it known that we're working together. So they're trying to keep their alliance low-key. They don't really hang out a lot. They're just kind of meeting up, comparing notes, making strategy, and moving on. Which I think is brilliant. Because we saw a lot in Big Brother 2. If you're known as like a duo, one of you has got to go. And we saw that with Chilltown. We saw that, with Kent and Bunky, or Monica and Bunky, Nicole and Hardy. Like, people were going to take out duos. But if no one knows about your alliance, then they're not going to view you as a threat to be together. So, brilliant strategy by Danielle and Jason. Spoonageddon, however, happens where, I believe, like, Roddy and like Kiara are spooning, and like Eric, I don't know, like there's people in the bed spooning, and Lori's like, oh, I can't be doing that because my kids are at home. So Marcellus is like, well, I'll sleep in there, you don't have to spoon me, but I'll sleep. There's all this like bed sharing happening, and Lori's like, I can't be doing that, I got kids, I want them to see that at home. And Jason and Josh are playing chess, and this is actually Jason is like considering like, this game is a lot like chess, and we have to figure out who's pawns, who's the rook, who's the queen, and basically everybody in here is trying to become the king, the most important piece, the piece everybody's in front of. But who in the actual reality, who is the king, who's the queen, who's all these pieces, who is who? And I thought that was a really cool comparison to put it in the light of like, I gotta figure out what I am and how to make myself the king. That's pretty cool. Roddy and Kiara are bonding, so again, another kind of showman's butting, which is, again, pretty bad. Meanwhile, Jerry is looking at numbers and thinking about whose numbers need to be where. And him and Danielle are kind of trading info about who's talking to who about what. And Josh gets brought up, and all of his overplaying, and Jerry's like, God, I'm so annoyed by his constant overplaying. So even the people that are working with Josh, the 6, the 2, the whatever, people are not happy with Josh. They do not like what he is doing. And I think that's bad. We have not even played the first Power of Veto comp. And people are so annoyed with how much game you're talking that they're considering not working with you. That's very bad. You cannot overplay so early in the game. And if you are thinking about all that, do it in your head. Don't tell people all the time. Marcellus, meanwhile, kind of spilling all the tea. He makes fun of Tanya, saying like because Tanya's boobs are talked about all the time because they're fake. And he's like, she's a stripper masquerading as a mother. And it's like, okay, that's a bit much, but did draw quite the laugh from everybody. But that was probably a bit too far. He's talking about, Tanya's talked about, she got 5 kids, blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, if you have a lot of kids, you're probably going to talk about your kids because that's a lot of your life is your kids. So you can't fault somebody for that. But, you do talk to these people nonstop for a long time, so I do understand that you get annoyed by the little things because you're around them constantly. It happens with probably 80% of human interaction. 80% of people you interact with, after constant interaction with them, you're going to get annoyed by things they do. So it happens, but, it was kind of fucked up. Then they announced the veto, and everyone's like, oh shit, like that's a big, big thing. And basically, you're trying to launch balls in other people's container, and once they have like 3 balls in their container, they're out. Pretty much everybody's trying to throw this. They don't want it. They don't want to have the veto. Meanwhile, Jerry, he's like, I'm gonna win it. And he wins the veto, and he's like, oh my god. I feel bad about Marcellus. Why did I target Marcellus? And he's like, oh my god, they're targeting him because he's gay and because he's black, and I don't want any part of it. I can't believe I let myself fall for that. I need to use the veto on him. And also, Jerry and Lori are bonding. And he's like, oh, I feel so bad for you being in your spot. And they're talking about the Marcellus thing. Like, yeah, it's fucked up. Lori's like, yeah, you should say Marcellus. I can't believe they're picking on him. And really, I'll get into that when we get to Jerry's veto speech. But I like what he does. I like the notion. But I don't agree with his reasoning whatsoever. Josh, meanwhile, is going around smacking everyone's butts. And that gets really annoying, especially since this is 2002, so sexual harassment wasn't as vehemently talked about or viewed as a problem as much back then. But especially like Danielle and Marcellus, who don't want him to and say they don't want him to, and he even says, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. You tell me not to doesn't mean I'm gonna stop. That's fucked up. Like Tanya and Kiara, they don't care. Like they're like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. That's fine. You can do that to them if they genuinely don't mind it. But if someone tells you they don't like you smacking the behind, then don't do it. It's wrong. And so seeing that made me a little uncomfortable. And again, was another reason I was really annoyed watching Josh, because he didn't care that he was genuinely upsetting certain people. Like you can be a dick or an asshole and still be generally likable. You can give people shit, but like if someone doesn't want to be touched, don't touch them. It's generally just a rule of thumb for any human interaction. And then there's this comp about how well do you know the house, and Team Marcellus wins. I believe that was like a luxury kind of comp. And then there's a lot of talk of Danielle and how funny she is, and that really comes into play, man, because she's the mom and she's likable, and especially like I said early in this game for those first few votes, you need to be likable, and Danielle kind of knows to amp up her comedic side to make these people like her. So, kudos to Danielle there. Marcellus even talks about at one point he was engaged to a woman. He had a strange relationship with his mother because of her religious background and him being gay. And it really went deep, and you really felt like he was sharing a lot, and you felt like you knew Marcellus a little more, and I genuinely have respect for Marcellus, and I think Marcellus is a good person. There's just a lot of things he does in his game later on that I don't agree with in the game, but as a person, he seems like he's pretty cool. And then that was a deeply emotional story. So, Jerry, there's this thing about Jerry not washing his hands and then cooking afterwards. And Danielle and a couple of the other house guests are talking about it. And they're kind of being a little rude, but they're kind of talking about how to go about talking to Jerry about it. Well, Lori's sitting there, and so she freaks out. She's like, I can't believe you're talking about him behind his back, and who started this? And Danielle eventually gets mad. She's like, well, I started it. What the hell are you going to do about it? And she's like, well, Lori's like, well, let's get him in here. So, like, Danielle and Lori are yelling at each other. And they call in Jerry, who's generally just like, what? And Danielle's like, please just wash your hands out of the bathroom. And he's like, okay, don't really know why you had to call me out about it like this, but okay, I'm sorry. Which, generally, yes, if you go to the bathroom, wash your hands. That's a thing. Please do that. But it didn't need to be blown out of proportion. Danielle could have just told Jerry. But Lori didn't have to freak out the way she did, especially being on the block. When you're on the block, especially if you're not the target, pissing people off is not the way to stay in the house. Like, if you're not the target, lay low. Then once you're off the block, maybe then you could be a little more ballsy, but you shouldn't piss off the people who you need to vote to keep you in the house. But Danielle even admits, she's the only one that actually admits it, being like, hey, I shouldn't have lost my cool like that. It doesn't look good on me if I keep blowing up like that. So she kind of had her moment. She's like, okay, not going to do that again. Whereas Lori's like, I don't regret anything. I had to call her out. And so Lori's already just kind of like fucking herself. And Amy and Lori in particular seem to be kind of against the popular side of the house. Like the Kiara, Roddy, Eric, Lisa, not Danielle, Josh, those kind of people are kind of against because they feel excluded. And Marcellus, he hears a lot about what Jerry's planning to do, and he's like, I don't want the veto to be used on me because he thinks it's a black thing or a gay thing. I don't want to be a sort of social pariah. I just want it. I want Jerry to save me with the veto because it's better for Jerry's game. I don't want my race or sexual orientation to be used like that. If I'm good for his game, keep me in. If I'm not, don't use it. I don't understand that part of it. So, a lot of kudos to Marcellus for really not wanting to use any of that stuff to quote-unquote his advantage. He just wants to be Marcellus, the big brother player, not the gay black guy. So that, it really says a lot. Meanwhile, Marcellus does kind of like get into the game. And even says like, I'm down to play this game. It took me a while to get down, but I'm down. So I like that of like saying, hey, I know at first I seemed out of it. I seemed like I wasn't playing correctly, but I'm here to play. And I'm ready to do this thing now. So don't count me out. Give me a chance. I'm ready to play Big Brother. So Jerry saves Marcellus with the veto, talking about the whole gay black thing, which, like I said earlier, I don't agree with. There's no doubt in my mind. Lisa and Eric and them, they were not targeting Marcellus because he was gay or because he was black. That had nothing to do with it. Josh, I don't even think it had anything to do with that for Josh. It was that Marcellus was not clicking with them, and they thought it was an easy first vote. That's what I kind of like how Nicole was supposed to be in season 2. It makes sense why Marcellus was targeted. So I don't think it had anything to do with being gay or black. I think Jerry just overthought the situation and didn't want to come across on national television as racist or homophobic. But I think doing this whole spiel on something that generally wouldn't have been talked about unless he talked about it made him look worse. And, again, just like Marcellus says, if he's good for your game, save him. I don't understand this whole social pariah business. But the veto is used. The first ever veto used to save somebody. Marcellus. So Marcellus pulled down. Lisa has to make a decision. Who's going up next to Lori? And Lisa's like, all right, I didn't want to have to do this. I'm so sorry. Amy, take a seat. So Amy's on the block, doesn't really seem all that surprised. Jason and Danielle, they get to ride the middle. It seems like there's a couple of sides of people who are not happy with each other, and they can just kind of let them shoot at each other. And at this point, man, Lori's melting down. She's like, I miss my kids, I miss home. So we get the votes. So you got Jerry votes to evict Amy, Danielle votes to evict Amy, Tanya votes to evict Lori, Eric votes to evict Lori, Jason votes to evict Amy, Roddy votes to evict Lori, Kiara votes to evict Lori, Josh votes to evict Amy, and Marcellus voting to evict Lori. So 5-4, Lori evicted. Obviously Marcellus not going to vote out Amy. And everybody knew, that Jerry, because he was close with Lori, and Danielle and Jason, they knew they were going to vote Amy out because they're kind of close with Lori. But they're like, where one of us flipped. Who flipped? And they don't know that it's Josh, because Josh had swore on his girlfriend, Merritt, or Mewit, as he calls her, which is super annoying, kind of gross, that he promised that he wouldn't vote out Lori. Which, I respect. However, I don't think he should have made the promise if he knew it was going to kind of be bad on him. So Lori's evicted, which is completely her own fault. She wasn't the target. And I think had she not had fucked up the way she did, Amy would have been evicted here. Then it's a memory head of household, where Marcellus, from the bottom to the top, baby, Marcellus is HOH, and everyone's like, oh shit. So now the Lisa, Eric, Roddy, Kiara side, they're trying to figure out, they're like, all right, we know Jason, Jerry, and Danielle voted out Amy. We know that. Who's the other person? And they're kind of freaking out, trying to figure out. We all know Josh was the hinky vote. Marcellus, he's thinking, he's like, I might target Josh. I don't really know. I'm just trying to figure this out. Whereas, everybody else is like, especially the Eric, the couples, they're kind of isolating Jerry, because they're like, man, Jerry had one fucking job, not to use the veto, and he used it. So really, for his game, saving Marcellus was not a good idea. And he's kind of in the hot seat with the couples. And especially with his cleanliness habits and snoring, on top of now he's not really trustworthy in the game. Things aren't looking good for Jerry, and it's completely his fault. For the viewer side, we were probably excited that he saved Marcellus. It was good to not see Marcellus walk out of the house, because Marcellus would have been evicted over Lori, I think. I think everybody who voted out Lori would have voted out Marcellus, and we would be looking at something real bad come eviction night. So, good to see that Marcellus stayed, but did not work out good for Jerry. They do this pageant where the girls end up in peanut butter flower bikinis, and that's a whole thing. There's not much to talk about there, but it was definitely featured heavily on the show, so I had to kind of bring it up. Meanwhile, Roddy and Kiara getting even closer, so, leaning more toward a showmance. And again, the target's going to get bigger and bigger the more they're seen together. And basically they have a have-not challenge, where, whatever team gains the most weight after eating this, like, brownie house. And due to the fact that Josh had cheated by shoving food in his pockets, he was completely eliminated. But even with Josh's weight, the other team still wins because they had the strategy of drinking more fluid, and that retains more weight. So that was actually pretty interesting to watch. And Josh even tries to, like, use his Judaism, because he's like, oh man, Marcellus is going to target me because I'm Jewish, or I know what it's like to be a victim. And it's like, Josh, don't use the fact that you're Jewish or whatever. Just, like, Marcellus is coming for you, but even if he doesn't, just let him, again, because of his game, don't bring that shit into it. It really got on my nerves. Like, Josh is just pretty much begging, like, don't put me up. For someone who is overplaying so hard, he is literally just begging to not be put up. And it's really just, I don't like watching that. So, that was really genuinely uncomfortable to watch. Amy Marcellus, man, they start to form this friendship because I think they're both real high maintenance, kind of queens essentially in their life, queen and king, and their life, and they're kind of judgy. They're kind of high maintenance, kind of snobby in a sense, and so that they're clicking very well. And then Josh tries to pick at Danielle, which ultimately Danielle's like, whatever, fuck you. And then her and Marcellus kind of talk about, like, Josh is a nuisance. So the noms come up. Josh and Tanya, nominated for eviction. Obviously, Tanya the pawn, Josh the target. And Marcellus makes that very clear in the nominations. Josh is pissed. So he's already, like, campaigning and trying to be like, yeah, it's just, I'm a Jew, I'm a victim. Meanwhile, Tanya's like, yeah, I'm pretty safe. I feel pretty good about this. So already Josh is campaigning, and it's like, dude, you've got it. This is just so annoying, trying to play victim and whatever. After you spent all of Lisa's HOH on a power trip, now you're just begging for your life, which is just, it's gross. We talked about Marcellus being a germaphobe. Like a bad germaphobe. And then we do the veto comp, where it's basically make an offer to get these boxes. And Josh, who's on the block, I know him winning the veto doesn't help him, but could take Tanya off and put up someone better, like Jerry. You could try to leverage. And basically, they offered a box. Like, Marcellus said, I'll give you my box if you'll be nice to Jerry. And Josh's like, oh, I can't do that. I hate Jerry. He's a piece of shit. Danielle ends up winning the veto because, man, she gets like 6 boxes. But then again, it's like one of the boxes has the vetoes in it. Someone who has one box could get it. But Danielle ends up with that veto. And she tells Marcellus, if I use the veto, put up Jerry. We need to get Jerry out of here. He's sneaky. He's going to slide by if we don't get him now. Marcellus is hesitant. He's like, Jerry saved me with the veto. That doesn't guarantee that I'm going to be loyal to him, but it kind of seems bad of me just to turn right around, like literally the next week, and boot him. Especially when Josh is such a dick. Meanwhile, Amy is coming in the Roddy Kiara showmance. Amy is kind of coming for Roddy. Kiara's getting jealous. And Marcellus is kind of trying to defuse the situation, but it's not going well. And Amy's even trying to convince Josh, like, will you put Kiara up if you win HOH? I'll save you. I'll vote out Tanya this week if you promise to nominate Kiara. Like, it's so petty. It's a fight over Roddy. It is kind of gross to watch. Then they do this really cool... It's a luxury comp for new workout equipment. And it's like human bowling. And it's really cool. I liked that. And Danielle ends up winning, chooses an elliptical machine. And Danielle trying to get that Jerry plan. Like, she's like, I'm only going to use the veto if Jerry goes up. She doesn't get a confirmation. So she ends up not using the veto. Doesn't want to risk Jerry not being put up, and like someone like Jason maybe even put up. There's too many risks. So Josh and Tanya will stay on the block. Tanya feeling super safe. She's like, there's no way I'm going home. Josh is talking. He's like, God, I gotta work hard. I gotta sway this vote. Meanwhile, Danielle kind of talking to Lisa about how the game works. So, Lisa, who feels kind of clueless, even though she was just HOH, Danielle's just kind of talking to her about what strategy. Jason and Roddy also talk strategy here. Roddy, who's got a pretty good brain on him and Jason is kind of talking about, especially Josh and his overplaying, and just kind of how to move forward. Jason and Roddy really starting to become friends here. Then there's a small conflict where I don't even think Amy said anything. And Tanya goes out and like, I'm not one to fuck with. Like, don't mess with me or else. And then Marcellus is like, hey, don't talk to her like that. And again, we have another instance of someone on the block who's probably a pawn going off on somebody. In this case, the HOH. And in front of everybody, and everyone's like, wow, what the hell was her problem? Like, that was uncalled for. And a lot of people outside knew that Amy didn't say anything and that Tanya just kind of jumped down her throat. So again, someone on the block who is a pawn is just going off on people and making themselves look bad right before a veto. Or, I'm sorry, right before the eviction. And it's like, why, Tanya, keep it to yourself. What are you doing? Twice in a row this has happened. It's crazy that people are just throwing their games away over petty shit. So the votes come out. Eric evicts Tanya. Amy evicts Tanya. Kiara evicts Josh. Jason evicts Tanya. Jerry evicts Josh. Roddy evicts Tanya. Lisa evicts Josh. And Danielle, Tanya. So 5-3. Tanya's evicted. She's like, what? I'm evicted. Josh is like, holy shit, I survived. Only getting Jerry, Lisa, and Kiara's votes. So even the guys weren't on the same page. Even the couple weren't on the same page, with who they were voting for. So Tanya, she's like, I don't know what happened there. You weren't as safe as you thought you were, Tanya. House guest question race, HOH. Roddy becomes head of household, securing that the couples will be safe for another week. And he's really up in the air. He doesn't know who he's going for. And Josh is already like, yeah, Roddy's HOH. Me and Roddy are cool. I don't have to worry about going on the block. He's talking about Jerry's like the prison bitch. He's going to suck up to whoever's in power. Roddy looking for safety. He's already over Josh and is overplaying. But Roddy's basically talking to people like, hey, if I don't put you up next week, if you want HOH, promise me we're cool. If you don't put me up next week, if you want HOH, I ain't going to put you up this week. And this, especially early on, this is a great strategy. Because you can't win HOH twice in a row. So securing your safety is pretty important. So I like seeing that a player thinks about this. Roddy really does show a lot of promise early on in this game of thinking ahead. Not just thinking about this week, but what you do this week, how it'll affect the week after and the week after that. How do I navigate to the end? Also, they had this segment about Danielle doing her ab workouts, and Roddy basically being very intelligent, and the other house has a hard time keeping up with what he's saying. So Roddy does seem like he'd be fun to have a conversation with. And then there's this interesting trio forming. You got Roddy and Kiara, or Kiki, where they're kind of a showmance. And Jason and Roddy, like, Roddy's like Jason's older brother, and Kiara's like Roddy's girlfriend, and Jason and Kiara have this friendship because she's always around because Roddy. So it's like this weird like brother, and also like Roddy and Kiara are dating, and Jason and Kiara are friends, and Jason and Roddy are like, it seems like a genuine friendship. And they have no idea that Jason's working so close with Danielle. Eric and Lisa, again, getting closer. Again, that target, man. Making that target too big. Giant, batik or whatever, like, board game kind of challenge. Food challenge. And they win their food and Subway. So they get, they got to get those advertisements in. Subway with the sponsorship deal. Then this is so weird. Eric's a sleep talker. And some of the things he says in his sleep, man, it's wild. Talking about, did you guys see that? Like, poor Lisa, is just trying to sleep next to him and just hearing all this weird shit. And Jerry, they did a segment, he quotes Shakespeare, but he's an English teacher. So if he's quoting literature a lot, it kind of makes sense. He talks about it, like, for most of the year. So, it comes up in his vocabulary a lot. The house gets annoyed by it, but really, I mean, what do you expect from a teacher? And Jerry and Marcellus are talking about, we got to target the couples. Like, we got to get through to next week, and we got to take out either Eric or Lisa or Kiara and Roddy. Like, we got to split up the couples. Noms come out, Marcellus and Amy, the besties, on the block together. And immediately Roddy's trying to run damage control with Amy because she's upset that, she's like, me being nominated is fine, but don't nominate me against Marcellus. That's very mean. Which, Amy, it's a game. You two are very close. It would make, you're kind of another couple to split up. Kiara definitely was a part of getting Amy put up. And Amy's like, it's because of Kiara that I'm sitting here. And it kind of is. Kiara did really try to get Amy out of there because of the whole Roddy jealousy thing. And then everybody talks about the cursed bed that Lori, Tanya, and now Marcellus are sleeping in. That whoever's in that bed's going to go home. And Marcellus is like, why did I sleep in that part of the bed? Now I'm cursed. That's a fun little thing there. Then also they talk about Kiara's sex life and how free with her body she is. She seems like a genuine, like, kind of hippie chick. So it's whatever. Then more about the secret duo of Danielle and Jason and how really effective they are. They just meet in the bathroom and play cards while everybody else is out doing their young adult business. And they're just kind of trading info, who they've been talking to, and they split off. They're not spending every minute together. They just hang out for brief little intervals to trade information and come up with a strategy to move forward. And then they don't have to keep meeting like, okay, the plan's still on. We still doing this? We still doing this? No, it's all right, this is the plan, and unless anything changes, if I don't get back to you, the plan is the same. If anything changes, I'll let you know. So they're very good at communicating as little as possible so they don't get noticed, but, sticking to the plan. And they're also trying to pit both sides against each other. It's like Marcellus and Amy and Jerry shooting at the couples, and the couples shooting at them, and, like, Danielle and Jason can sit in the middle, let the two sides pick each other off, and then come in at the end and win. That's a very smart strategy. Especially since Danielle's so close with, like, Marcellus and Jerry, and then you got Jason who's close with Roddy and Kiara. So, like, they got themselves planted on both sides, and they're just getting everybody else to fire at each other and keep each other's names out of the mix. That's such a smart thing to do. Because if at any time Kiara or Roddy, like, man, we should probably put Danielle up, Jason would be like, oh no, maybe we should put up Marcellus instead. I think Danielle's okay for now. And they could be like, oh, well, if you say so, Jason. Like, and then Danielle on the flip, if Marcellus is like, I think I should put Jason up, Danielle would be like, well, Jason's not really that much of a threat. I think Kiara is a threat, or Roddy, or so, like, they can throw up other names and get each other further, and no one would think they're working together. It's a beautiful strategy. And Marcellus and Amy do this little date night, where, because it's like their last night in the house. It's their last hoorah. Not their last night in the house, but it's their last hoorah before, one of them is probably going to inevitably be evicted. We go to the Pool Sharks Veto Challenge, where Eric ends up winning the power of veto. And Roddy and Eric discuss Josh. Like, maybe we should take off, like Amy or Marcellus and put up Josh and take him out because he's really a pain in the ass. He's a liability. And Amy's also kind of trying to come out of her shell and just relate to people. She has problems interacting with people. And so she's trying to do that a little more. So the veto ceremony happens. Eric does not use it. Lets the noms remain the same. Marcellus, he's like, I've been told that Amy's probably going home, but our past 2 pawns have left. So I don't feel safe. He's the first quote-unquote pawn to be like, yeah, I'm pretty scared. So, good that Marcellus can at least not be like, yeah, I'm good. I don't have to worry about anything. And Amy is kind of campaigning. Like, she's kind of saying, like, you should probably keep me over Marcellus, even though they promised not to campaign against each other. So Marcellus gets pretty pissed off. And he's like, Amy, I trusted you, and you went against me, and you campaigned against me, and they had this whole clash. So right before the eviction, they're not, like, it's a quick fight, they make up, but Marcellus is annoyed that Amy lied to him. So the voting happens. 7-0. First unanimous vote of Big Brother 3. Amy's evicted. And, 3 girls in a row walk out the house, and there's talk of girls versus boys at this point, which doesn't really happen, but there's talks about it. And I really hate when the game is split like that, when it's like, it's the girls versus the guys. I don't like that. Like, I don't think an alliance should ever be based on gender. Just like I don't think guys should be like, well, we got to keep the guys together, just on the fact that we're the guys. Like, even if like a 4 or 5 girl alliance happens because that's who they click with, that's okay. But don't be like, it has to be girls versus guys. I'm only going to align with girls. Or on the flip, I'm going to align with guys. Only guys. I don't like that stigma. Just click with who you naturally click with. Not based on gender. But they don't go through with this. But there's talks about it, especially with 3 girls walking out in a row. It's a little discouraging to the 5 remaining, or the 3 remaining girls. Sorry, like, thinking like this is a 16-person season, this is a 12-person season. So there's 3 girls, Danielle, Kiara, and Lisa, and they're like, yeah, no, it doesn't exactly look great that we're the only ones left, and there's 6 guys in here. I understand wanting to band together at that point. Jerry is trying to reel in the outsiders at this stage, which, again, makes sense. That you would want to get, because Jerry's definitely on the outs. So trying to reel in Marcellus, and at this point, Danielle and Jason are viewed as not having an allegiance to anybody, even though they have an allegiance to each other, and trying to target the couples. So there is an evicted house guest memory HOH. It's a showdown between Jerry and Eric. And Jerry ends up being the head of household. And Josh immediately starts kissing his ass after all the shit Josh has given Jerry, including calling him a Nazi. Josh is trying to keep off the block. And the couples, or as they're called, the beautiful people, they're like, shit, we're in a lot of trouble here. Jerry is not a fan of us. And immediately Roddy and Eric go, and they're like, so you're going to put up Lisa and Kiara. Hey, if you put up Lisa and Kiara, one of them's got to go. We understand. So immediately Roddy and Eric are like, hey, you put up those 2, we'll leave that alone. And it's like, whoa, guys, that was a little kind of dickish. And then we talk about Marcellus brings in these rubber duckies to the house that people are using for duck ball. And there's a lot of talk about duck ball, having to throw it and get these points for things. So that's kind of funny that, poor Marcellus is at his expense of his duckies. They're being used for a game. And then everybody's talking about manscaping. There's men grooming themselves, and Josh is like, they're not real men because they're shaving or whatever. It's like, whatever, fuck off, Josh. It's kind of the common occurrence now that people manscape, so you're kind of in the minority at this point. Eric and Roddy, again, it's talking about they're very close. The bros, they're broing down. They're having a good bro down, bromance. Then there's this have not, where people have to eat, like, kind of gross things or whatever. Red team versus blue team. Eric, Jason, Lisa, and Marcellus win, leaving Danielle, Josh, Roddy, and Kiara on peanut butter and jelly, which, compared to slop, guys, PB&J is so much better than slop. So it's funny watching these early seasons and hearing people complain about peanut butter and jelly, because it's not that bad. It would get old after a while, but it's just a week. Eat your PB&J and then move on. And then Eric's sleep talk, it's a bit scary. Like, he talks, like, it gets a little dark. Scares Lisa pretty badly. It's a little awkward. Roddy gets in trouble because he doesn't know Kiara's last name. So he's like, Josh, will you talk to her? Try to fish it out of her, because I feel bad not knowing it. Josh's like, yeah, cool. And doesn't even leave the room. Like, Kiara walks in, he's like, hey, Kiara, what's your last name? And she's like, ask Roddy. And Josh is like, well, hey, I asked. And she's like, well, ask Roddy. And Roddy doesn't know. And she's like, you don't know my last name. How fucking dare you? And Josh even gets mad. Like, how dare you get mad at him? He doesn't know your fucking last. It's like, Josh, calm down. You did this. It's your fault. You fucked this up. So, yeah. Like, Josh manages to, I don't know. It was pretty stupid. Like, yeah, he should probably know her last name, but it's not that big of a deal. But I think Josh made the biggest deal out of it. Then there's also this Hardy-Roddy connection, where Kiara accidentally calls him Roddy, because she calls him Hottie, which then she actually says Hardy. And that's hilarious, especially after, BB2. So nominations come up. Eric and Lisa on the block. So, one of the couples was going to get hit, and it's going to be Eric and Lisa, not Kiara and Roddy. Both think they're safe. Both Eric and Lisa think they're the pawn. Well, only one of you can be the pawn. One of you has to be the target. So, it's kind of weird that both think they're the safe one. Meanwhile, everyone's fearing the veto. There's talks about Danielle grinding her teeth at night, which, everyone's got their tics. Snoring, sleep talking, grinding teeth, especially when you're in a nervous game like this happens. So they have this POV, which is kind of like a competition Survivor, where you got to flip over these tiles trying to corner your opponent. People eliminated in order are Jason, Lisa, Marcellus, Josh, Jerry, Roddy, and finally Danielle, leaving Kiara winning the power of veto. And, she could save Eric or Lisa, but Roddy probably goes up. So she really doesn't want that. So she's really wary of using that veto. Meanwhile, Danielle and Jerry, they're missing home. They're missing their spouses, missing their kids. And then everybody talks about missing sex. They really want sexual intercourse when they get home. And then Eric goes to have a conversation, really tossing Josh under the bus to Jerry. However, Josh hears Eric's conversation. Josh had totally planned on voting out Lisa, but Eric's throwing Josh under the bus, so he kind of is like, well, fuck you, I'll vote you out then. In early Big Brother, they were really bad about, this is why the HOH room eventually goes upstairs, because people just are standing next to the HOH, like, to the wall, and can hear through the walls, and hear people talking. Like, there's a lot of overhearing shit. Like, they should probably just make all the rooms soundproof. because people are, it's shitty when people can just be standing outside and hear your conversation and now you're fucked. It happens even in modern Big Brothers. Make your room, all the rooms, soundproof. That way, the only way you're going to get overheard is if someone walks in the room, and you're dumb if someone walks in the room and you continue to have a conversation.